And I'm going to start by introducing somebody who's been one of the longest serving chief executives in Super League for some years. He's been the chief executive at Huddersfield Giants for 15 years. And during that time, he's won absolutely nothing. But he is actually a good man, so if you can join me on the stage, Richard Thewlis, everybody. I've told a lie. He said if you use that line about winning nothing again, I'm gonna plant you on. So he gave me a list of his achievements beforehand. So just to be clear about it, 2015, they won the best match day programme. 2016, best mascot. And then my particular favourite, 2017, best half-time pie. So without a doubt, you're in exalted company with Richard Thewlis here. And the other guest, the reason we're meeting down here is because we couldn't actually rely on getting Mark up the steps to get here. So everybody will know Mark. Sorry, without him, we won't be back at Odsal really. So I know you'll give him a big welcome. You recognise him over there. It looks like he's just eating that in poverty. Go on. This is a two-mic operation. Sit down, Mike, if you like. We've had it all load tested before, and don't worry. So, Mark, you've had a long career in rugby league. In fact, I think you've been chairman of Dewsbury for 23 years. How did you actually come to take it on?
I was a sponsor at Dewsbury, and I used to help them out because they were in difficulties, the members club. And I got a call one day and they said there's 8 of us wanting to take over Dewsbury, will you join with us? You don't have to have any official role as a chairman or anything, so are you willing to put a few quid in Dewsbury? So I said yeah, I'll put a few pound in. And he said look, you won't have to take any official role or anything, and we should be off and running, and you'll get your money back within a short period of time. And so I had a word with the missus, and she said, well yeah, okay. And the fellow who asked me to be one of 9 signed with the administrator to take it off the members club. And then every 10 minutes he was ringing up saying, you can't believe it, somebody's had to pull out, his missus won't let him. And then one Martians had landed in his back garden. Another one had lost his bank card. And it finished up that there were 4 of us who took over the club, and 2 only could put in the original amount of money. And I ended up being chairman on the basis of a meeting that I'd be chair for up to 6 months. Or for 6 months, but they didn't say which 6 months. And I got involved in it, and I've been there 23 years, and I'm still chairman. And then we're enjoying it so much that I got involved at Bradford, as people know, but at least we managed to get some people to come into Bradford, and it was well worth my involvement there.
Now then, go on then. Now, can we all be a bit quiet here for Richard, because he's not used to performing in front of a crowd, that's the issue. So now, what I didn't know beforehand, that Mark, at 23 years, is the shortest serving rugby league club chairman in Kirklees, because your chairman's been there longer and Kerry Nicholas has been there longer. So when did you first get involved with Huddersfield, Richard? I know you've been a supporter for a long period of time.
Yeah, 98. It was my path was totally different, and I was working as a corrugated box salesperson up and down the country, and I got stuck on the motorway one day, and unfortunately my mother was quite ill, and I couldn't get home for 6 hours, and it caused me immense distress, and I got home and sorted what I had to do out for Mum. Literally picked the paper up, because I decided I couldn't carry on doing this job. I picked the paper up, I opened it, and the first page I opened, it said there was a job down at the Huddersfield Giants. They'd just got into Super League, and so that was my boyhood club. Those are the people that I supported, and I applied and was fortunate enough to get the position, and went from there. So it was 98, and I started the day after Malcolm really started, who was the coach then of the Newcastle Knights that the club had brought in. I think they'd had one shocking year in Super League, quite a lot of shocking years in Super League actually, after I joined. Malcolm came in, and yeah, that was when I started in 98.
And you've been a fan for a long time, obviously, before that, so you must have seen some really good players play for Huddersfield. You know, is there anybody that springs to mind perhaps in the room at the moment?
Well, Gary Hetherington, who's walked in at the back there, obviously. No, two players, obviously. I do remember seeing Nigel play for Fartowns, it was then. He played at Mansfield Marksman under the name of, I think it was Nigel Walker, was it? Certainly wouldn't dare put wood down, but Nigel's one appearance. I was there, but it left nothing whatsoever in my memory. I also saw Gary Hetherington play for many times at Huddersfield, because there was a big story about Gary, and he'll tell you the story better than I can, but I was merely a fan, and we had this player that somehow had paid to come and play for us by paying his own transfer fee. And I remember my dad and his old pal that we used to drive us down to the games, thinking this bloke must be bonkers, paying to actually come and play for us. So really excited to see what he could do. Not a great deal, if truth be told, but they were early memories, and of course, and indeed you would have played many times for what was our A team back in the day. But yeah, hours and hours spent at Fartown, and then obviously a couple of years we moved down to Leeds Road, shared with the football club. That just never really felt like anything, to be honest. And then moved into the stadium, which, as we all know, is wonderful, but just too big for us.
Yeah. So, Mark, when you first got hold of Dewsbury, so to speak, is it true you went through a full season without winning a game?
Yeah, it wasn't the first year, but it quite true the second year. We won as last game, which meant we finished above Chorley.
That was short of budget then, you know, bit of winning pay.
The truth is that I took over the club after they were told they couldn't go to Super League, even though they'd won the right to go there. They were said it was because of the ground, but it wasn't. It was because of the financial situation. And with a lot of hard work, and it wasn't easy, I'll tell you, within 2 years I got them to the bottom of League One, the bottom division, from the top of the championship. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, because as I just alluded to Nigel, we were left with a very serious match at the end of year 2. We had to beat Chorley or else we'd finish bottom, and our lads came up with the trumps and we beat them. So the next year we moved forward, and to be honest, we've been yo-yoing between the Championship and League One ever since, but we've had some great players in that period of time.
And which would be the best?
I suppose Danny Bruff. I mean, I've always been able to do a bit of wheeling and dealing with stuff, and it hasn't been easy at Dewsbury, as you can imagine. The club was in serious debt when I took over, and we haven't got a big fan base like ourselves here. And I got a phone call from who was the Wakefield chairman then, Ted. He said, I've got a young kid here who ain't so bad, but I just can't carry on with him. He said his latest thing is that he was drunk and disorderly, and I said, oh, that's bad. It's not as bad. He got on a bus and drove it up a one-way street. So I said, it sounds as if he's the makings of a good Dewsbury player. So I said, send him over. And Danny's has got his own rules and regulations, but he turned up with somebody who was definitely in charge that day. It was his mother. And she said, our Danny's doing this and our Danny's doing that, and he just nodded and he signed on for Dewsbury, and he played really well for a year or two until we got a big transfer fee from York and he went there. Unfortunately, we're a small club, and if offers come along they go. But there's been some greats at Dewsbury, and people will probably remember we won equivalent to the Super League playoff final in 1973 with likes of Mick Stevenson and co. And he disappeared like many more down to Australia and what have you. But there's been plenty of ups and downs at Dewsbury.
I think two of those players, I think Jeff Grayshall played in that side, and Nigel Stevenson, both are not playing here. So when you talk about players, you've always been renowned around the sport for unearthing gems and buying at the bottom and selling at the top, which is the right way to do it, I suppose. But I know there's a story of a player that you signed and you were a bit disappointed with his work rate, so you actually put him on a contract which depending on how many minutes he played, because you weren't getting enough value out of him, is that right?
Yeah. We got, people will probably remember him, Frank Watini. His cousin died of an heart attack as we know on the pitch, so we'll probably know him a little bit for that. But Frank, like myself, maybe me setting a bad example, liked his food a bit. And coach said to me, he said, look, he said, we can't sign him next year, he's only good for 10 minutes. So he said that no, those 10 minutes is brilliant, but then he needs carrying off on a stretcher. So he said, He said, have you got any ideas? And I said, well, somebody else will probably sign him. Anyway, Frank came back to me a couple of weeks later. He said, you know something, I can't get in anywhere else. So I said, we'll have to do a bit of a difference with your contract then. And he says, what's that? So I said, you just get £5 basic. Oh, no chance, he said. Plus so many pounds a minute you play. So I said, if you'll play 80 minutes, you know, we'll have to remortgage the club. So I said, oh, I've never had a contract like that offered before. And I said, well, you have now. So anyway, he came back and he signed. I'm not joking, he was in gym every day. We're running up and down there. And I got him on the 2-year deal, and he started playing, and it was just immense. He was doing 60 minutes a match as a prop, and they were saying, "How have you unearthed him?" I said, "Well, they were here last year." So at the end of the year, I think Halifax came in and said, "We'll give you so much for him." So he went to Halifax. He ended up being a youth development officer there and whatnot. And I bump into him now and again. He's running some paintball centres throughout Europe. He's done well for himself, because that's one big thing for me, seeing what happens to the lads when they finish. They might be a great player on pitch, and when I'm just out and about working, it's amazing how many turned up. They'll turn up and they've had a good electrical business, or the painters and decorators, or there's one who's actually a barrister. But there were also one who I said, I haven't seen you for a while, and he said, just came out of Armley after 8 years. So and that's a true story.
So Richard, and all the players that have passed through your office, whether it's been to sign them or to let them go, you know, who would you say is the best players that you've signed and worked with?
I'd say we had Brough. We had Brough in his prime. And everything that Mark says about him is correct. It was a character. He had issues that we all know about off the field, but the reality of it is he was a world-class player. As simple as that. He was man of steel when he was at Huddersfield in 13. We also had Brett Hodgson, who was man of steel. They were probably our two best players, but the player that left the biggest impression on me was a lad called Michael De Vere. And that was because John Sharp was the coach, and we used to have these little pigeonholes at work, and I think I just sort of moved into my role at that time. I just saw a little note in John's pigeonhole. It said, please ring Michael De Vere. So I said to John, have you seen that note? He said, oh, it's a lot of rubbish that. He said, it can't be true. I said, well, give him a ring, you never know. I'm not ringing him, that'll be somebody winding me up, this, that and the other. This is true. I thought, well, I'll ring him. So I did ring him, and it was Michael, and he said he wanted to come to England, and he wanted to play at the birthplace of rugby league, which he was a current Australian international. His head coach was Wayne Bennett, who used to play for Huddersfield in 1972, and not very well, according to my dad, but he played on the wing, not very well. And Mick wanted to come to Huddersfield, so I remember saying to him, well, that's good. I'd better check with the coach that he wants you. When I said it, I thought, that's a stupid thing to say to Australian international. We've been bottom of the league for God knows how long. So I told John, and obviously Michael came across. But the thing about Michael that I had never seen before was his attitude and his application. His professionalism was something that we haven't got in our club at Huddersfield since Michael left, and his influence waned. The nearest one possibly being the great Stuart Fielden, who was at this club. But Michael would he'd do some remarkable things. I remember he used to room with Chris Thorman when they went away, and Chris would say 3 o'clock AM every morning. Michael would get up, go to the toilet, he'd hear the tinkle, 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 same amount coming out as he'd put in earlier, back to bed. 6 o'clock in the morning, he'd then get up, do a load of stretches, then back to bed till 7:30. Breakfast was regimented. After breakfast, he would write a list of his goals that were there for that particular day, 2 or 3 or 4 things. Those were the things he was going to do that day. Always stayed for extras, always helped coach the juniors. Pulled his hamstring tragically the week before we were due to play at Wembley, which would have been our first final since '52. Was ruled out of the game, refused to accept the physio's advice, and basically somehow ice stretch, 7 days straight. And Mick played in the cup final for us. We scored first, and he kicked the goal at Twickenham into the wind in a windy arena. And he was the player that left the biggest impression on me about how to conduct yourself if you want to be the best that you can possibly be. Bennett came in one day and he saw the team that we had, and he said, "Oh, did he?" He said, "Nobody will get past him on the left hand side." He said, "Not much ability, but a man who has made every single ounce of what he had count just through sheer effort, commitment and dedication." And the only player we've had that came close, to be frank, is Stuart Fielden.
Same could be said for you about that. Not much ability, we made the most of what you got, isn't it? But so if that's your best, what would you say your proudest moment has been whilst you've been in charge?
Well, it's not here tonight, that's for sure. Tough one, Nigel. I don't take any credit for what goes on the field. I don't look for accolades like that, I believe.
Well, I lost 29-0 on Friday. It's a good job you're not taking any credit for what goes on the field.
I won't mention Sunday then when we came down.
We were up.
I mean, both supporters that day went home very disappointed. I need to think about that one. And nobody's ever asked me that before, because I always believe it's about players. I always think it should always be about players. But the clubs do great things away from the field that people sort of often just don't see. Like the foundation does remarkable work at this club, and we have a similar type of setup, not as advanced, I'm sure, as the Bulls Foundation is. But there are just little highlights. I mean, I remember down here, strangely enough, we beat Leeds in the Challenge Cup semi-final, and arguably we shouldn't have done. Leeds were red hot favourites, but that day happened to be our day, and our owner Ken was sat in the stand over there, and the fans were singing "Bye Bye Leeds," etc., etc. And he got up and waved them goodbye, and we happened to get it on camera. And what we then did was we then got some letterheaded paper from the RFL and wrote, might have been before your signature on it actually, and we wrote a complaint from the RFL about Ken, the most dignified chairman in the game, being seen to say wave goodbye to the Leeds fans. That was one particular highlight that I enjoyed. he squirmed around for a while on that one. But yeah, I need to have a long think about that, Nigel. It certainly wasn't watching you at Mansfield Marks, but I can assure you of that.
You know, that was an invitation to the call you actually put in the year that you won the league leaders.
Oh yes, this is a good story. You give this one, you're better than me, because this is embarrassing for you.
Yeah, well, so it's a very true story. After many years, Huddersfield finally achieved some success. I think all the other really good clubs must have stumbled that year to leave a gap for Huddersfield to come through on the blind side. But they got the league leaders, they won the league leaders, I think it was 2015, is that right? Right, it might be there, right. So I was doing another job at the RFL at the time, and Richard was delegated the responsibility of phoning me up and asking me who would be presenting the league leaders shield at the game. So I said, well, Richard, that's likely to be me. And there was a silence on the other end of the phone. And he said, is there any chance we can get somebody else? Anybody else? Anybody? We don't care who, but can we get... I said, is that for you? He said, Ken's asked me to ask, can we get anybody else? The local MP, Mother Teresa, the one that helps the kids over the lollipop stick over the anybody but you. And with great dignity, I said, well, I was thinking of giving way, but now that I realise it'd be such a thorn in your side, I'm going to make sure I come and do it. Is that a fair reflection?
That's a true story.
So Mark, back to you. We're coming to the end because I can tell you're getting hungry again, and so we're coming to the end. So, what would you say your greatest achievement? I mean, you've gone through a season with nearly not winning, but you've also gone through a season and not lost, or nearly not lost, which must have skinned you, because there's a lot of winning pay to go out then. So what would you say, apart from staying in business solvent without an active insolvency for 23 years, which in itself, I have to say, is a truly commendable performance, what would you say is your most outstanding, or has it not happened yet?
As you pointed out, we won every match home and away one year, and the thing what appealed to me was it was by far not the biggest budget in the division. It wasn't the case of we're spending 5 times as much as somebody else. But off the pitch, Dewsbury didn't own its own ground. It got a lease which it had breached, and we've managed to buy the ground, and we've managed to do some alterations and improvements and make it a nice small ground. I think there's very little bad publicity from other clubs about the state of his ground, so we've done some good things. And then there's other years we struggle on the pitch. As I say, we're a definite yo-yo club between Championship and League One, so there's room for improvement there. And I think my biggest failure is not building us crowds up enough. We've got reasonable crowds compared to some clubs, but we're never going to be a top Championship club on the sort of crowds we're getting, and it's a worry that the average age of our supporters is unfortunately going up each year.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if there are any questions for Richard or Mark, but if I kind of expected there wouldn't be, so that's okay. What I just want to say is, these two guys didn't have to come here tonight. They come here out of personal favour to me and also out of respect for this club. And they're both good rugby league men to the core. And they're both in their own way made a significant contribution. What tends to happen in the sport of rugby league is if you score tries and kick goals and run around the field, you get all the accolades and all the adoration and everything you like. But some of the hardest working people are people who never get the opportunity to actually, to say anything to anybody. And it can be a bit of an unforgiving stint. But these two guys are first class in what they do. They're very good friends of this club, and I know you'll thank me you'll join me in thanking them for spending their time with us this evening. Thank you.